By Heineken, open your world. By Nationwide. Nationwide is on your side. Speak with Rich Grillo in Massapequa or James Finaro in Bethpage today. Get to Citi Field this Saturday when the Mets take on the Brewers at 7:10. The first 15,000 fans will receive a Mets fedora, courtesy of Sector Spider. For tickets, visit Mets.com/tickets. Today's Game Changer brought to you by T-Mobile. Jake Arrieta, the starter for the Cubs tonight, reborn when he was traded to Chicago in the middle of the 2013 season, turning it completely around after struggling in Baltimore. He's been a mainstay with the Cubs ever since. Time to vote for your Mets All-Stars. You can vote 35 times on the 2015 Esurance MLB All-Star Game ballot at Mets.com. Voting is exclusively online and available on your computer, tablet, and smartphone. Vote at Mets.com now. Temperature in the mid-50s. Mets and Cubs getting set. How nervous is that guy? Noah Syndergaard's debut coming right up. Blowing from left toward right out of the northwest as Noah Syndergaard gets set for his big league debut. He finished his warm-ups rather early.
Real early. I was thinking 32 years ago I was in his place. I'm wondering if I looked as nervous as he did. Probably.
Here's the Geico Mets starting lineup tonight. Syndergaard will bat 8th in his debut, only the 3rd pitcher in the last 100 years to do that. We mentioned Lagares out with a strain under his arm. First game he hasn't started, so Kirk Neuenhuis is in center field. Kevin Plawecki will catch Syndergaard in his debut, even though Johnny Manel caught 2 of his last 3 starts for Vegas.
Well, we showed in the first segment there about Jake Arrieta how better he's been as a Cub. None better than here at Wrigley Field, where he's 10-4 in 21 starts as a Cubby. Those are his Toyota numbers. And the defense is going to be brought to you by Coors Light. Chris Coughlin in left field, the ex-Marlin, Dexter Fowler, and Jorge Soler in right field. infield, young and talented. Chris Bryant, Starlin Castro, Addison Russell, and Anthony Rizzo, the corner guys with home runs last night. And Miguel Montero from the Diamondbacks, now a Cub behind the plate.
And Montero off to a very good start as well. Dilson Herrera's sitting tonight, and the guys in the dugout are going to have to try and stay warm. It's going to be cool tonight and colder tomorrow, where they say it's going to be in the 40s with the wind blowing in. So any available warm weather or cold weather gear gets broken out for this series. Well, I think that's a bit of an overstatement, but you get the point. Fans in the seats all bundled up. Bleachers not quite as full as they were last night. Last night, the first night that they opened the left end center field bleachers after renovation. And Chris Bryant quickly deposited one of those left field bleachers. So you see the first night euphoria in the bleacher section has worn off a tad.
They're all dressed in pink last night.
Curtis Granderson, Chicago native, will lead things off. Granderson sat last night, came off the bench and drew a walk as a pinch hitter in the 9th inning. Mets hit some balls very hard in the 8th and 9th with nothing to show for it and lost by a run. And the Cubs put on the full shift against Granderson. Arrieta's first pitch of the night is a fastball high, and we're underway.
Here's the shift that Gary was talking about. Granderson has good numbers against Arrieta, who pitches all the way on that third base side of the rubber.
9 for 25 with 3 home runs against his right-hander. And the fastball in for a strike, 1-1. Granderson's last start on Sunday, he had a 2-run homer in Philadelphia that turned that game around. 3 home runs on the year. On base percentage, .357. And he takes the curveball down, 2-1. Granderson, Murphy, and Kadire for the Mets. Interesting to see Murphy in the 2-hole where he's spent most of his career, but the first time this season that Murphy is hitting second. A 5-hitter most of the year, the 3-hitter the last 2 games, and hitting second tonight. And Granderson takes a knee-high strike, 95 from Arrieta. That's about where he'll top out, 2-2.
Interesting, though, Gary, sorry, the numbers against Arrieta was when he was with Baltimore, mostly, where he struggled.
And he runs it inside, and a full count to Curtis. How many full counts has Curtis Granderson had earlier this season? Arrieta going with the short sleeves on a cool night. 29-year-old who pitched at Texas Christian University. Keenly watched by his manager, Joe Madden. 3-2 to Granderson, and it's outside. Granderson draws yet another walk, his 21st of the year. He's 4th in the National League in walks, and the Mets have the leadoff man on.
Well, I gave you those numbers before. 10-4. Look at that low ERA here at Wrigley Field. You know, remember against the Mets last year, he pitched 2 times, 11 2/3 innings, walked 5. So he does have an issue occasionally with walks.
So here's Murphy back in the 2-hole for the 361st time in his career, but the first time in 2015. Murph went 0 for 4 last night. And he takes a strike from Arrieta. Jake Arrieta, first 5th-round draft pick by the Orioles, never really got it going with Baltimore. Had an ERA in a Baltimore uniform, almost 5.5, and it was like a light switch was turned when he came over in July of 2013 to Chicago.
Maybe that AL East got him early in his career. Kind of the mechanical man. He is a perfectionist. You see his motion on that third base side of the dugout. Lifts that heel and throws way across his body. That's why he gets that good movement. Tough on the body, but he's a big, strong kid. There it is. Placement with that foot.
Oh, Arrieta's thrown 9 pitches, and the Mets have yet to swing at a single one of them. Being very patient early on. Arrieta's not a guy who normally struggles with his control, but the Mets have seen him wild before. They haven't had much luck against him. 3 career starts, a 2.41 ERA, but in one game they faced him where he walked 5. And another take and another 3-ball count. So Arrieta having trouble tempting the Mets early in this game. Michael Kadire hitting 3rd in the order, waiting on deck.
Remember one of the games you and Keith did here where Arrieta started. He was in trouble every single inning.
So 3-1 to Murphy with Granderson aboard. And Murphy hits a double play ball right at Russell. Castro with the turn, 4-6-3 double play. Mets take their first swing of the night, and it produces 2 outs.
Isn't it crazy, this thing we call pitching? He threw one good pitch so far to 2 batters, and it results in a double play. Nice turn there by Russell, and Castro had some problems with some communication yesterday, but fine double play there.
Castro having no trouble with Granderson bearing down on him. 2 out and nobody on. Now Michael Kadire, 1 for 3 last night. He's hit in 5 straight games, trying to get his season jump started, and he takes a big cut at a fastball, 0-1. So after the first 2 hitters were very patient with Arrieta, Granderson trying to ambush him. Arrieta last year missed the first 5 weeks of the season with shoulder problems, made only 25 starts, but still finished in the top 10 in the Cy Young ballot. This one's along the line, and that falls just foul as it hits the side of the bullpen mound. Dyer almost had himself a Texas League double.
You know what's interesting, Gary, when we watch Arrieta, is that he had some problems, mechanical flaws early in his career, and if you've noticed him now, you almost can't tell when he's in the stretch or when he's from the windup, because he starts almost in the stretch position every single time, and then when he's winding up, he'll just step back with that left foot.
Almost as they've completely simplified his delivery to take out some of those kinks. Dyer chases a slider, and he's a strikeout victim. First of the night for Arrieta, and the Mets are done in the first. Noah Syndergaard takes them out for the first time in the big leagues when we come back. Well, 22-year-old Noah Syndergaard from Mansfield, Texas, in the center of the diamond. There's the Cubs lineup that he'll face. Miguel Montero in there tonight, the cleanup hitter and catcher, otherwise the same unit as last night. Dexter Fowler leads off, and Syndergaard's first fastball is taken low at 97 miles an hour.
Well, his numbers in AAA, you see, they're outstanding, especially of late. Those Jeep numbers, made 20 hits, 8 walks in 29 2/3 innings.
He's the latest in the progression of young Mets starting pitchers to make their debuts. Matt Harvey in 2012, Zach Wheeler in 13. Last year, Jacob deGrom, and now Syndergaard. Fowler fouls off the fastball, and it's 1-2.
97 miles an hour. Pretty simple for a big guy. What you try to do with these young right-handers, young left-hander, try to simplify that motion. Leg kick, not much of a stride for a big man.
And Fowler went around on the curveball, and he is a strikeout victim for the first out. And they will take that ball out of play and authenticate it and save it for Mr. Syndergaard, his first major league strikeout.
Well, good breaking ball down and in. What Fowler wanted from Jerry Meals, home plate umpire, was to check with the third base umpire, Andy Fletcher. Joe Madden, he has no problem riding the umpires. None.
Well, last night he was out challenging Buddy Carlisle's set position, saying that he was balking. It was a long conversation. Chris Bryant takes outside at 99 miles an hour. Bryant christened the new bleachers in left field last night with a long home run. His first at Wrigley Field and his second as a major leaguer. After 43 in the minors last year, and he drives this one to right center. Over comes NYN, and he picks it off for the second out.
Well, defensively behind Syndergaard this evening in Chicago, the Lexus defense. NYN, the new guy in center field. The guy is getting the night off because that sore kind of underneath the shoulder. Murphy, Flores, Tejada getting the start at second base, and Duda, and Kevin Plawecki behind the plate.
So 2 out and nobody on now. Anthony Rizzo, who hit a first inning home run off Jacob deGrom last night right after Bryant hit his. Rizzo off to a great start. 442 on base percentage, 593 slugging, and he goes after another first pitch. Hot shot for Flores, side retired. A quick inning for Noah Syndergaard. Took him to 7 pitches to get through his first major league frame. No score after 1. Doesn't turn, this will be okay. Second inning, Lucas Duda will lead off for New York against Jake Arrieta. It'll be Duda, Flores, and NYN for the Mets in the second. Mets were held to 3 runs and 6 hits last night, but it felt as though they hit the ball a little better than 3 runs and 6 hits.
Well, they hit the ball out of the ballpark. The 8th and 9th inning, they should have maybe gotten a couple of hits mixed in with the bullets they hit, but not to be.
Meanwhile, Noah Syndergaard gave up a couple of bullets in that first inning, but you know what? Sometimes that can help clear your head, can't it? 7-pitch inning with a couple of hard hit balls.
Well, it's got to feel good. That's the first time he sat down after he came in from that inning, so the adrenaline is flowing.
Might be hyperventilating just a tad. Here's Duda, 2 for 4 last night, including his 3rd home run of the year. Hit it off John Lester into the center field bleachers, and he takes a strike. Joe Madden was praising Duda today, saying he has one of the best swings he's seen this year. Lucas, after a struggle, 4 for 9 over his last 2 games with a double and a home run and a good curveball by Arrieta, puts him in a 2-strike hole. You saw Arrieta in the American League. What's made him a better pitcher since he's come over here?
Well, I think he's refined that breaking ball. He used to throw 2 of them Gary. He used to have a curveball and a slider. Now reminds me more of the breaking pitch that Kluber has in Cleveland, where it really is unhittable when he gets ahead of you. And I think huge thing was confidence. You know, he came over here, got out of the AL East. Some new pitching coaches saw him, treated him more with kid gloves, and that worked.
Leans due to bat. The 94-mile-an-hour fastball, 2-2. Chris Bosio, the Cubs pitching coach, presiding over a staff that has been up and down. And Arrieta's part of that. His last 2 starts have not been good. He got chased by the Cardinals in the 6th inning of the last start. Gave up 5 runs and 9 hits.
It's funny we showed Chris Bosio right after that pitch, because that's how Bosio pitched. He had a sinker slider kind of pitcher, but every once in a while he buzzed the left-handers up underneath the chin to get him off the plate.
Some really good years with the Milwaukee Brewers, Bosio did. Duda leading off the second. Flores on deck, and Lucas went around on the curveball from Arrieta, his 2nd strikeout.
Well, it's just nasty. When he gets ahead of you, it has such great rotation. That ball goes straight down. And again, Jerry Meals not asking for any help. I guess he's going to take care of calling the check swings.
So 1 out and nobody on. Now Wilmer Flores, who homered last night over the auxiliary scoreboard in left field, his 4th of the year, which makes him the Mets club leader in home runs with 4.
Well, he was the leader for a while with 3, was tied, and now gone ahead again, which is good for Wilmer, not so great for the team.
Flores hitting 5th for the 2nd time this year. And he takes that cutter outside, 2-0. Kirk Neuenhuis sitting 6th in the order. He's waiting on deck. Flores pops one up in foul ground. That'll go out of play. 2-1.
Interesting, huh? Neuenhuis got a start on Sunday to get him going a little bit. He had a nice game, and now with the small injury to Lagares, he's in there.
Lagares said in a best-case scenario he'll be back in there tomorrow, but you just don't know. He strained that muscle under his arm when he made that catch a week ago, and it got worse and worse as the week went along. Flores pops one up. Castro, the shortstop, out to call. Called off by Coughlin, and Castro stays with it and makes the catch for the 2nd out. It's a play normally with the left fielder's going to take that ball, and Castro said no.
You know, Coughlin came up as an infielder. He's moved to the outfield, and Castro looked like he wanted to take that one all the way.
So 2 out and nobody on. Now Neuenhuis, who had a very good game Sunday in Philly, not just an RBI double, but he stole 3rd. He made a great catch to end the game. Just his 5th starting assignment of the year, and he takes up and away for ball 1. Anyway, with Lagares, the biggest problem right now is A, it hurts him to throw, and B, it hurts him to run. Not so much to swing the bat, but you know, those 2 things are a big part of his game. And Arrieta behind his 2nd straight hitter, 2-0. And, you know, the Mets have such an enormous amount invested in Lagares in terms of him being their defensive stopper. They just can't afford to put him in a situation where he's going to have to go on the DL.
I think one of the things we've seen this year is that Eddie Fletcher said that Neuenhuis followed through on that swing. Meals did check with him this time. The big thing is that he's one of the best athletes on the team and does so much for you even when he's not getting a hit in the game.
And Arrieta behind 3-1.
He missed some time last year, right, with a bad hamstring.
And then he had the elbow problem late in the year that shut him down a couple of weeks early. Arrieta's already walked 1. And he finds the inside corner to Neuenhuis, 3-2. We're checking with Jerry Meals about that last call. Kevin Plawecki would be next. 2 out and nobody on. 3-2 coming to Neuenhuis. And he cracks one to deep right field. Soler going back. He's got room to make the catch. Side retired. 1-2-3 inning for Jake Arrieta. Noah Syndergaard back to the mound for the bottom of the 2nd with no score. Noah Syndergaard threw just 7 pitches to get through a 1-2-3 first inning, including a strikeout of his first big league batter. Miguel Montero will lead off the home second for Chicago.
I remember my first start, Gary, my debut. I struck out the first 2 batters I faced. Mike Schmidt was up. I got ahead of him, and I said, I'm going to throw the greatest curveball ever thrown. I threw it. It came off beautiful, and Mike Schmidt hit a BB, one hopper to shortstop. I was like, whoa. That woke me up that it was in the big leagues.
These big league hitters are pretty good, right? Here's Miguel Montero, the former Diamondback, takes a fastball for a strike. Montero spent 9 years in Arizona, a couple of all-star appearances. Cubs gave up a couple of minor leaguers to get him, and right now it's looking like a steal for Chicago. Montero's off to a terrific start. First changeup from Syndergaard, and he misses with it, 1-1. We know that Noah throws hard. We know that 2 springs ago, Terry Collins referred to his curveball as the hook from hell. And there's another changeup, and he gets the ground ball to Duda for the first out. At what point is his changeup in its development?
Well, obviously, it's got to be a pitch that he's going to rely on because he threw it twice in a row. You never see this from a young pitcher, or you don't see it very often. A guy who throws 98 miles an hour, 99 miles an hour, throws 2 changeups in a row. That surprised Montero.
So 1 out and nobody on. Now Jorge Soler, 0 for 2 with a couple of walks last night.
Well, the bill of goods he came with is that he can throw his fastball for strikes, 4 and 2 seam. He's got that hook from hell you were talking about, but that he's able to throw his changeup when he gets behind in the count.
You've already seen that curveball. It struck out Fowler in the first inning. Little looper into right, and there's the first hit of the game. And Soler dumps one into right field for a 1-out single. So there'll be no debut no-hitter for Syndergaard on this night.
It's a good pitch. 2-seamer running in on Soler. Breaks his bat. But Soler, we know, is so strong, able to dump that into right field.
So 1 out and 1 on, and now Starlin Castro, who went 0 for 4 last night. Castro at 276 on the year, very aggressive hitter. How much of a scouting report does a young pitcher get in his debut? In other words, you know, Castro loves to swing the bat. He's not gonna take a lot of pitches. Does he absorb that knowledge, or does he just go out there and throw his game?
I would keep it very simple. I wouldn't get too in depth with a guy who has stuff like this in his first start. Just let him go out there and enjoy the moment. You know, Plawecki's caught Syndergaard enough that I think you give the scouting report to Plawecki. He tries to execute it, and if you know him, you just kind of go with your catcher.
That may turn out to be one of the greatest trades in Mets history. And the Mets got a Cy Young season out of Dickey and then turned him into d'Arnaud and Syndergaard. A check swing. That one skips by Plawecki, and down to second base goes Soler.
Well, it's the changeup here. Bottoms out. Plawecki goes right underneath his arm.
So a wild pitch charge to Syndergaard. Now runner in scoring position with 1 out. A 2-1 count to Castro with the left-hand hitter Chris Coghlan on deck. Keep in mind both teams are batting their pitcher 8th in this game. So that affects the progression of these innings. Two and 2 to Castro. Well, it was in 2012 that Matt Harvey made his debut, a spectacular one in Arizona with 11 strikeouts. Zach Wheeler in the second half of that doubleheader after Harvey pitched a gem in the first game in Atlanta in June of 13. And DeGrom last year with his surprising debut against the Yankees. He was called up to be a part of the bullpen, but a Dylan G injury gave DeGrom his start. Has the good curveball, and he strikes out Castro for his second strikeout. And ironically enough, it's a G injury that has given Syndergaard his opportunity as well.
Yeah, the groin injury to Dylan G has put him in the rotation. Good looking breaking ball there.
Rom had a rough night last night. He's got some things to work on.
Dan Wortham was talking about that he's really pulling his arm too far behind him, so he's not getting his hand in a good spot to throw all of his pitches.
Well, this is the consequence of hitting your pitcher eighth, and we saw it last night in the first inning as well, when the Mets walked David Ross intentionally to get to John Lester, and they're going to do the same here with Coughlin in the seventh hole to get to Jake Arrieta.
And he's not much of a hitter either.
He had a 0 for 13 this year, lifetime 130 hitter, and so Terry Collins will go the same way he did last night. Now, Terry batted the pitcher eighth a bunch early in the season, and he plans to do it more going forward. Madden's been doing it every game this season.
Well, the old Silver Fox trying to outduel the younger Silver Fox. Although I didn't know Joe Madden was 61 until we started this series. He seems younger.
Well, Terry is the oldest manager in the major leagues, and Joe Madden is the second oldest at age 61. Terry's 66. So 2 on and 2 out. Here's Arrieta looking for his first hit of the season. 10 for 77 in his big league career. Milwaukee out talking to the defense in case Soler or Coughlin decide to make a move. So Syndergaard trying to take care of his opposite number and put an end to this inning. And Arrieta takes a fastball for a strike. There you see the oldest managers in the major leagues. I wouldn't have bet on Ned Yost being 60 years old. These guys are aging well.
And Boch too.
I would have thought Buck was a little older. Syndergaard quickly ahead 0-2. You know, we showed the numbers from Harvey and Wheeler and DeGrom's debuts. One thing to keep in mind with Syndergaard, over the last 10 years, there are only 2 Met pitchers who've made their debuts as young as Syndergaard as a starter. Mike Pelfrey was 22 in 06. John Neese was 21 in 08. Syndergaard 22. The other guys were all older. Arrieta strikes out on the curveball. Third strikeout for Syndergaard. And he works around his first traffic of the night. After 2, Mets and Cubs, no score. Third inning presented by your local tri-state Audi dealers and the uncompromised Audi A3 sedan. Kevin Plawecki leads off in the third inning. Plawecki 1 for 3, drove in a run last night. And Arrieta starts him off with a fastball high. Plawecki, then Syndergaard hitting 8th in the order, and then Tejada for the Mets. See, now Syndergaard hitting 8th makes sense when you look at his minor league offensive numbers. You might have thought about hitting him 5th.
That's right. Had a home run in the minor leagues, right?
His last start last Thursday, hit one over the center field fence.
Oh, lefty. Did not know that. When we see him in spring, they always have the DH because he pitches usually early in spring.
Just like Jacob deGrom, a right-hand pitcher who bats left-handed. Doing one to Plawecki, who grew up as a Cub fan in Indiana, and told Mike Verkunoff today that he had 2 cats growing up named Sosa and Pryor. So he's really a Cub fan. Bryant takes his time, throws out Plawecki, 1 away. This Bryant, for a big man, looks very smooth around third base.
He does. He's been compared to Mike Schmidt in the way he moves around third, and of course his power.
Well, there you see Syndergaard's numbers this year, 5 for 11 after that 3 for 4 home run game last Thursday in Albuquerque. Lifetime 37 minor league at bats, 270 batting average. They'll face big league pitching for the first time. And it takes a big rip at a fastball, 0-1.
It's a good swing. One thing you've seen about these young pitchers that are coming up to the Mets, not only do they throw hard, good athletes, all of them.
Well, the funny thing is, you know, when Harvey came up, he was instantly successful with the bat. Same with deGrom. You've noticed it's been harder for them as pitchers start realizing that they have to treat them with a little more respect. There's a good cut by Syndergaard, 1-2.
We always used to kid Syndergaard's pitching coach in AAA, Frank Viola. We said, Frankie, they DH for you in Little League? No. But Frankie could pitch. Wow.
And Harvey will go tomorrow night. You wouldn't want to face him tomorrow night. That's a good breaking ball by Arrieta to strike out Syndergaard, his 3rd strikeout. Think about this. Matt coming off, you know, a so-so outing his last time out. 45 degrees, wind blowing in at Wrigley Field. Do you think you're going to want to face Harvey tomorrow night?
No. Absolutely not. He's going to probably use it to his advantage, pitch in a lot.
And there's another piece of that, too, by the way, as Ruben Tejada steps in. And I hearken back to the doubleheader in Atlanta 2 years ago when Wheeler made his debut. Tejada 3 for 7 on this road trip, and he takes a strike. It was almost as though on the day that the new guy with all the hype was coming up, Harvey pitched one of his best and angriest games, as if to say, hey, let's remember what the pecking order is here.
Focus, fans, focus.
Ball and a strike to Tejada. I mean, really, in 2013, before he went down, that was a seminal moment.
It really was.
For Harvey, that June game in Atlanta, when all the focus was on Wheeler pitching in his hometown in his debut. Tejada getting the start at second base tonight. Nothing wrong with Dilson Herrera, but Tejada's on a good road trip, and he's getting rewarded for that.
I remember about that doubleheader is that after Zach won the game in his hometown, Atlanta, they gave him a beer shower. No champagne. Beer.
At least it wasn't a pie.
Right.
Well, although I have to say the main pie guy is doing a heck of a job for the Dodgers. That would be Justin Turner.
Listen, he did a heck of a job for him last year. He's a good ball player. Smart ball player. Just when the game was done, he'd get a little silly. He had too much time on his hands.
Seems like he's getting less and less time on his hands now. With all the injuries the Dodgers have had, he's played a lot. 1-2 to Tejada, and he pulls one foul.
So we're seeing now Arrieta, one of the things he does, he throws that indoor curveball, starts it right at the right-handed hitter, tries to bend it back over the plate. Tejada was waiting, though.
1-2. Curveball. Again pulled foul. Tim Tuffle has to get out of the way. Did a little Tuffle shuffle.
You still can do that? I'm not sure.
Well, it's changed over the years. Curtis Granderson would be next. Arrieta walked his first batter, Granderson. He's retired everybody since. Ahead on Tejada, 1-2. Ruben watches up and away, and another long at bat for Tejada, which is something he's been doing his entire career. Seven pitches deep in this at bat. Eighth one coming up. And that's just off the corner. Arrieta had 1 foot in the dugout. Jerry Meals said no, and it's 3-2.
Joe Madden hasn't stopped talking for 2 days now.
We might be cold.
Yeah, right.
3-2 coming, and Tejada slugs one to center, but right at Dexter Fowler to retire the side. So Arrieta's faced the minimum through 3. Hot dogs, anybody? Keep it warm. No score in Chicago.
2 dogs with.
This is an interesting thing to look back on. The top 10 Mets prospects heading into last year. We'll go back to that in a moment. Of the 10 that Baseball America put up there going into 2014, 6 of the 10 have now made their major league debuts with the Mets. 3 of them are still in the relatively low minors, and the 10th is Brandon Nimmo, who is on his way up. Addison Russell leading off, and he fouls it back.
What I like about this list, Gary, not only have they debuted with the Mets, but it's appropriate when you're playing this Cubs team because they have this same kind of thing happening over there with their everyday players.
Ahmed Rosario, number 7 on that list, and Gavin Cecchini, number 9, both shortstops. And those are the guys the Mets are waiting for. At that spot, the Cubs at the same time have a plethora of shortstops in the big leagues or just below. Addison Russell being one of those, but squeezed in at second base. 1-2 from Syndergaard, and it's punch foul curveball. Russell 1 for 4 last night. He drove in a run. reached base in 14 straight games. And he hits one toward the middle of the diamond. Flores flashes over and makes a nice throw on the run to get Russell one away. Well, there are Noah Syndergaard's parents, Brad and Heidi, looking very serious. I mean, they are locked in.
My dad was a coach, so I'm sure he was telling my mom all the things that weren't going right.
Well, the Syndergaards are here from Mansfield, Texas. It's quite a tradition of big, hard-throwing right-handers from Texas, going back to Nolan Ryan and Roger Clemens and Josh Beckett, and Syndergaard, the latest incarnation of the big, raw-boned Texas right-hander.
Arrieta's from Texas also.
Might not quite fit that same mode, but yeah. Dexter Fowler takes one just off the plate. 1-1. Funny thing about Syndergaard is that when he was a little kid, he wanted to play soccer, and his mom forced him to play baseball. And after his first year in baseball, he didn't like it very much, and he wanted to quit. And his mom forced him to play again, and he started to get good at it.
Smart mom.
Yeah. He names his gloves. This one is Thor, which is also his nickname.
What color is that glove, Gary?
It's a brownish kind of thing.
Unusual color for a glove.
But he's had a glove named Lion, a glove named Drago, a glove named Heisenberg, big Breaking Bad fan, out to center field, and on comes Neuenhuis to get it to retire Fowler 2 out. I like the Heisenberg idea.
I was thinking of Syndergaard reminds me a little bit of a player I played with that came up with unbelievable promise. Todd Van Poppel, who was from Texas, big right hand.
Right, he was supposed to go in that mode. Van Poppel was the guy who was supposed to be the #1 draft pick in the country, but he told everybody he was going to the University of Texas, and so the Braves, who had the first-round pick, reluctantly passed on Van Poppel and took some unknown kid named Chipper Jones.
Larry Jones.
Yeah, it worked out okay for them. Van Poppel wound up going to Oakland with the 14th pick and had a checkered career. Bryant hits a one-hopper to Murphy, and the throw gets him. No! Missed him by half a stride, and Bryant beats it out. Well, Murphy may have misjudged the speed and hustle of Chris Bryant.
Well, that's what it was. It was pure hustle from Bryant, kind of styling here with a soft throw by Murph. And we'll see if they review it or not. I don't think Terry's coming out, and he shouldn't come out.
Well, that's just a mistake by Murphy. He just took way too much time. It'll be an infield hit for Chris Bryant.
You had mentioned that, Gary, that he runs the bases well. He plays the game hard. Father taught him right.
I mean, that looked like a routine ground ball to third base, and Bryant beats it out. Now Anthony Rizzo, as the inning is prolonged, and we'll see how Syndergaard handles that. He should have been in the dugout.
Well, one thing about Syndergaard so far, we saw when runners were at first and second, his delivery to the plate is pretty mechanical and pretty slow. See if the Cubs try to take advantage of that.
Now, last year, Syndergaard in Las Vegas gave up 21 stolen bases in 27 tries. He's been better this year, only 1 steal against him in his 5 starts.
His pickoff move is pretty quick.
Rizzo takes the curveball down. 2-0. The rare time Syndergaard's been behind a hitter tonight. He's issued 1 walk, but that was intentional. Bryant has a couple of stolen bases. 2-0 to Rizzo. And he bounces that changeup. 3-0.
Interesting that he threw a 2-0 changeup there to Rizzo. And your guy who throws 97, 98 miles an hour. Watch when he takes this ball out. He takes it right out of his glove, more like a catcher's motion. And
there's ball 4. He reminds you a little bit in that of Jason Mott, who's in the Cubs bullpen. But one of the things the scouts have said about Syndergaard is because he does that he takes away some of the deception that he might otherwise have.
They pick up the ball right away. Because what are hitters trying to do? They're trying to locate where the ball is. So if they pick it up out of your glove and see it, it gives them a longer time to see that baseball.
So a 4-pitch walk to Rizzo, and now the Cubs have 2 on and 2 out. And Miguel Montero, the batter. Syndergaard got Montero to ground out and change up his first time up. Bryant at second, Rizzo at first, and 2 down. Syndergaard worked around a couple of base runners in the second inning, but that was with the pitcher batting. Now he's got the cleanup hitter Montero at the plate with 2 on. Starts him off with a sinking fastball, 1-0.
Gotta be careful here against Montero. He's head in the count. He loves that fastball, middle of the plate away. It has great power to left center field.
Already has 4 home runs this year. That's 6 in a row out of the strike zone now for Syndergaard.
This is where you see young pitchers, how they're going to react when a player on the field doesn't make a play. And they turn it into a 0.
Two-0 coming. And that's a letter high strike. Might have gotten the benefit of that call from Jerry Meals. 2-1. We'll see what Syndergaard has done. Last year was not a great year for him in AAA, especially the first half, and he had a 4.60 ERA. A lot better this year, 1.82 through his 5 starts. Two and 1 now to Montero. And that misses away, and now it's 3-1. So a bit of a crisis point here for Syndergaard in the 3rd inning. Jorge Soler waiting on deck. He had 2 out and nobody on. A routine ground ball to 3rd. Murphy took too much time. Bryant beat it out. He walked Rizzo, and now he's 3-1 on Montero. Montero swings at the changeup. How about that? 3-1 changeup and a full count.
Brings a smile to the face of Montero. Remember, he made an out in his first at-bat on a changeup down that he pulled to Duda. Gets another one, 3-1.
So now the runners will be in motion. Bryant at second, Rizzo at first will be off. Scouts are here with their radar guns. 3-2 coming to Montero. And it's too high, ball 4, and the bases are loaded. So back-to-back walks after the infield hit for Bryant, and now the bases are loaded for Jorge Soler, and Dan Warthen is going to head to the mound for a conversation.
Well, this is probably the most important visit Syndergaard will ever have. To have Warthen come out there, calm him down a little bit. Should be out of this inning. But you're not, so you got to work your way through it. Parents nervous as ever.
If he can get the 3rd out, maybe they'll give us a smile.
Maybe. It's tough.
Well, Soler didn't hit it hard, but dumped a base hit into right field his first time up. Bryant now at 3rd, Rizzo at 2nd, Montero at 1st with 2 out. And a big moment for Noah Syndergaard. He's already thrown 22 pitches in this inning, an inning that should have long since been over. And Soler takes a first pitch curveball for a strike. That is nasty.
That was his best one all night. Stood Soler up. That's such a wicked break on him.
Had a hint of Hades. And Soler gets another curveball and wails at it, and it's 0-2.
Well, we've already seen a lot of breaking pitches, either curveballs or changeups, secondary pitches, let's call them, by Syndergaard this evening.
So you now throw one even further out of the strike zone?
That's what you'd like to do.
Soler trying to make the adjustment, fouls it off. Most pretty clear what the Mets field scouting report is on Soler. Threw a ton of breaking pitches last night. He drew a couple of walks in last night's game.
He got a hit in his first at bat on a fastball in.
Bases loaded, 2 down, 0-2 to Soler. He threw him a fastball and he fouled it back. A good rip back.
He's right on it.
Soler, part of this young contingent of Cubs hitters, just 23 years old. They signed him to a 9-year deal after he defected from Cuba. But he does strike out a lot. Here's the 0-2. And Plawecki knocks down that curve to keep Bryant at third.
That's a nice play by Plawecki. Tough curveball, hits before the plate. He cradles it right in the stomach. Plawecki out to talk to Syndergaard.
Interestingly, Terry Collins said he considered catching Johnny Manel tonight because Manel caught 2 of Syndergaard's last 3 starts, and Manel has swung the bat so well since coming up. But the only reason he didn't is because it would have left him without a lefty on the bench tonight with Neuenhuis in the starting lineup. But Syndergaard certainly is just as comfortable with Plawecki, who caught him at Vegas as well. Here's the 1-2. Again, a breaking ball down. And now it's 2-2.
Interesting. The more that Soler sees that breaking ball, he's doing a better job of laying off it.
Well, Syndergaard's thrown 6 pitches in this at bat. The 1 fastball that he fouled back and 5 curveballs. Starlin Castro would be next.
He could elevate a fastball here, Gary, out of the strike zone. Soler wants to hit a fastball. Just throw it out of the zone.
7th pitch of the at bat, and the breaking ball gets behind Plawecki, but not far enough for Bryant to make a move. But now it's a full count to Soler.
Just 1 fastball in this sequence of pitches to Soler. Change up there from Syndergaard. This is a good read by Chris Bryant. There's nothing you can do. Even if he would have left on time, there would have been a play at the plate.
So now the merry-go-round will be in motion. Bryant, Rizzo, and Montero will all be moving. Scoreless game, 3rd inning. 3-2 to Soler. Fly ball, right field. Granderson's got it lined up. Side retired. Syndergaard had to throw a lot more pitches than he intended in that 3rd inning, but he finds his way through trouble. After 3 in Chicago, no score. to watch Noah Syndergaard for the first 3 innings. First 2 were fairly simple, and then he ran into some trouble in that third.
Well, it was interesting. He was flustered after Murphy didn't get Chris Bryant on that hustle play by Bryant. Flustered for a couple of hitters through 6 straight balls, but then kind of corrected himself with that facing Soler. It was nice to watch him get flustered, regain his composure, and get through the inning.
Curtis Granderson takes a curveball for a strike as we start the 4th. Granderson's been the Mets' only base runner. He walked leading off the game. Well, what's been noticeable about Syndergaard early in this game for a guy, who throws 97 to 99, is how many curveballs and changeups he's thrown.
Well, I remember when Harvey came up, when he pitched against that game against Arizona, it seemed like it was a ton of fastballs, maybe occasional breaking ball. Wheeler, it was almost all fastballs. He really couldn't throw his breaking ball for a strike till last season. And Syndergaard not that way at all. Looks like 50% fastballs, 50% secondary pitches.
And there you see what he's thrown so far.
Yeah. So 32 fastballs, 22 secondary pitches. Oh, the intentional walk doesn't count. Yeah.
Actually, they've got sliders and curveball. He didn't throw a slider, so it's actually 12 curveballs.
Breaking balls, yeah.
But I wonder how much of that, because we heard all the reports last year that first half of the year when he got in trouble, he was throwing all fastballs. So I wonder how much of that has to do, as Granderson draws the second walk of the night, has to do with making 31 AAA starts, which those other guys did not.
Well, I think that's huge. I think also pitching a lot in Las Vegas, where it always seems like you have a home run in that thin air. That'll change what you do as a pitcher, and also it's deception. Gary, some pitchers, even if they throw 97, have to deceive the batters by throwing more breaking pitches. He seems like that kind of pitcher.
So Granderson aboard to lead off an inning for the second time. First time, Daniel Murphy grounded into a double play.
I mean, Wheeler is the only guy on the staff, when you think about it, could probably pitch a game when he's at his best with just a fastball. It's that deceptive.
So last year it seemed as though Jacob deGrom could do that when he was pitching down to his own.
And probably Harvey could do it, but chooses to throw that wicked breaking ball to make it not fair.
That's because he's mean. Granderson just 2 stolen bases this year. But the Mets trying to find a way to generate some offense. Jake Arrieta has yet to allow a hit. 3 times last year, Arrieta took a no-hit bid into the 7th inning. So he's got that kind of stuff. 2-1 now to Murphy with Kadire on deck.
By the way, I love that booth shot. Not many times we have a Chicago Blackhawk toque in our
I didn't see
booth.
that. Didn't see that behind us.
Very nice.
We might anger some Ranger fans.
Right. Well, it's not ours, guys.
Well, remember the first inning when the Mets didn't swing at the first 9 pitches Arrieta threw? Well, 8 pitches this inning, and nobody swung the bat yet. First ball the Mets swung at, Murphy hit into a double play. Swings at this one and hits it over the bag for a base hit. Granderson's going to try for third. Cogwell with the throw, and they'll be out by a mile. A bad read by Granderson, and he makes the first out at third base.
Well, the shift gives Murphy the hit. Then the hustle play by Coughlin to get the ball. He's an old infielder, so he makes that throw on the run, and Granderson out by a mile. Boy, the play right in front of him. You usually don't see Granderson make mistakes like this, but this is a big one.
This is a team that's struggling to score runs, and that's a classic case of trying to do too much. And that was not even close. 7-5 on the putout. Murphy gets credit for the Mets' first hit of the night. He's at first with 1 out, and now Michael Kadire. And he takes it down for ball 1. Kadire struck out on 3 pitches his first time up. And Arrieta ties him up inside and misses. 2-0. Lucas Duda waiting on deck. So the Mets have their first hit of the night against Arrieta. He gave up 9 hits and 5 1/3 in his last start against the Cardinals. In fact, his ERA in his last 2 starts was 6.97. So he is trying to bounce back tonight in the place where he most prefers to pitch, at Wrigley Field. His Wrigley Field numbers have been extraordinary. Right back to Arrieta. Out at second. Castro's relay from a 1-6-3 double play. Side retired. 3 men bat in the inning. A walk and a single. But the Mets are done. No score in the 4th. Some of the scene underneath here at Wrigley Field, where there's a lot of construction these days and not as much room to walk as there used to be. Home 4th inning. Starlin Castro leads off and takes the curveball for a strike from Syndergaard. Castro struck out his first time up. One of 3 strikeouts for Noah through the first 3 innings. He's walked 3, one of those intentionally, and given up 2 hits. And he paints the outside corner with a fastball, and it's 0-2.
2 perfect pitches there by Syndergaard.
Castro, Coghlan, and then the pitcher Arrieta, 6, 7, and 8 in the order for Syndergaard in the 4th. 1-2 to Castro. There's Coghlan on deck. I'm still shaking my head about that Granderson base running play in that last half inning.
He's such a heady player. He just doesn't make mistakes like that, but did there.
Coghlan must have felt like it was Christmas as he charged that ball and saw Granderson bolting for third. Two-two to Castro. Lifted to left center. On comes Kadire to call. 1 out. Castro retired, and we check in with Steve Gelb. Steve?
Gary, so what was the difference between Noah Syndergaard in AAA last year and Noah Syndergaard in AAA this year? Frank Viola, the AAA pitching coach, says it all has to do with the work that he put in between starts. For instance, last year, he didn't think he was getting the most out of his bullpen sessions. If, say, they wanted him to work on his curveball, and he threw 2 pitches out of maybe 10 that they wanted him to throw for curves, if he didn't like the way they felt, he would completely abandon that pitch and just go on with his work. This year, he was determined to make sure that he was getting those curveballs over, making sure he got all the work in that he could in those sides. Frank Viola said the 3 final sides in AAA this year before he got called up, best he's seen in 2+ years. No wonder 22 innings. Oh, great play there by Kadire. So 2 away, but real fast to wrap this up. 22 innings, 27 strikeouts, 2 earned runs, 2 walks, the final 3 starts for Syndergaard in Vegas.
Good read here by Kadire. Ball stays up a little longer. He's able to come in and make that play.
Well, Coughlin, who had the outfield assist on Granderson, has a base hit taken away by the Mets left fielder. Beautiful play by Kadire for the second out. And now the pitcher Arrieta will bat with 2 out and nobody on. Well, there's something to be said for maturity, and I think both in terms of his on-field actions and his off-field actions, I think Syndergaard's learned a lot over the last year.
Remember, he's 22 years old. Mistakes happen.
He had the lunch incident in spring training. He had the Twitter thing last month. Every little thing helps him work toward being the big league pitcher that he is now. Of course, Noah was in the clubhouse eating lunch while Mets were playing an exhibition game.
He should have been on the bench.
Should have been on the bench. And David Wright and Bobby Parnell came into the clubhouse and called him out on it, and he learned his lesson. And you know, the little things that go into the maturation of any professional in any profession. There's a great curveball to get Arrieta looking, and that retires the side. 4th strikeout for Syndergaard, and he has a 1-2-3-4. Still no score in Chicago.
You know more about the Mets than Gary Cohen and Howie Rose? SNY is looking for the teams of 2 fans to compete against the best. Think you have what it takes to outsmart the brains of the booth and win $5,000. And come to Citi Field for SNY's open audition for Beat the Booth presented by Citi. Saturday, May 16th, starting at 9 a.m.
Well, Noah Syndergaard looking more and more comfortable as the evening goes along. Certainly not quite the deer in the headlights he looked like before he took them out in the first inning.
19 more pitches, though, he threw after the not error by Murph, but the base hit hustle play by Bryant. Error in judgment by Murph.
Well, the Mets have made a couple of blunders tonight, one in the field, one on the bases. It's still a scoreless game as we start the 5th. Lucas Duda leads off against Arrieta and takes a fastball for a strike. Lucas struck out his first time up. Duda, Flores, and Neuenhuis. Mets have managed just 1 hit through the first 4 innings against Arrieta, who's walked 2 and struck out 3. Second time he's moved Duda off the plate tonight.
Well, the pitching coach Chris Bosio said after Joe Madden had those comments. Dude, it looks too comfortable up there. Remove his feet a little bit.
He just cracked one into the center field bleachers last night for his 3rd home run of the year. Bounces that one foul. 1-2.
No sleeves for Arrieta. He did not use batting gloves when he hit.
Talk about a steal of a deal. The Cubs got Arrieta and Pedro Strop, their setup man from the Rangers, in a deal for Scott Feldman and Steve Clevenger, the catcher. That's worked out incredibly well for the Cubs. Strop, a key part of their bullpen. Arrieta has been a mainstay in the rotation.
Is Feldman in Houston? Is that where he is? He signed a deal with Houston.
Arrieta strikes out Duda for the 2nd time. That's his 4th strikeout. Before Wilmer Flores comes up, let's see what's coming up tomorrow on Loudmouths. Check in with Chris Carlin and Adam Shine.
Gary, tomorrow at 5:30 will be all over Noah Syndergaard's debut. Plus, we got a big preview of Rangers Caps Game 7.
And Gary, it's absurd that Tom Brady got suspended 4 games for Deflategate. Back to you.
Right, it should have been 8 games. Flores takes ball 1 from Arrieta. Thanks, Adam. Flores popped up to short his first time up. I couldn't believe it. I turned on my TV and there are news shows doing huge takeouts on Deflategate. What's going on in this world?
Exactly.
Isn't there important stuff happening?
In the words of Harry Carey, sports aren't that important.
Flores hits one in the air to left center. Ball really being caught in the wind now. The wind is shifting. It was blowing left toward right. It's starting to blow a little more in now as the evening goes along. And that ball just stopped in left center for Fowler. 2 out.
Well, like you said last night, Gary, no ballpark plays different with the wind than Wrigley Field. When it's blowing out, anyone can hit a home run. And when it's blowing in, almost no one can hit a home run.
Well, it appears that if you want to hit a home run right now, you better hit it to right field. 2 out and nobody on. Now Neuenhuis, who flied out to right his first time up. Got to stiffen up on a cool night. Kevin Plawecki would be next. Arrieta's 1-1. And the curveball in for a strike. 1-2. Well, you're right about his curveball.
It's really
so
good.
Consistent with it. One and 2 to Neuenhuis. And he lays off the curveball in the dirt. 2-2.
He's got 2 different types. He has that one that he'll throw that's a little slower that he throws for a strike. And if he gets ahead of you, he tries to throw one in the dirt.
Neuenhuis just got a piece of that to stay in the at bat.
I mean, that started off the plate away. That's where Montero wanted. Ended up almost hitting Neuenhuis in the back knee.
Montero setting up inside, and he gets Neuenhuis swinging to end the inning. 5 strikeouts for Arrieta, 2 in that inning as he sets the Mets down 1-2-3. Halfway through on a chilly night in Chicago. No score.
Well, if it's Tuesday, it's Stump Gary Day. And here's the question. Who's the only pitcher to throw a no-hitter before joining the Mets and after leaving the Mets?
Before and after.
Before and after.
Because there have been a lot of both.
Yep.
But this is the only one you're saying who threw a no-hitter before he arrived and then threw another no-hitter after he left.
That's a good question.
That's a fantastic question. I have to think about this one. Addison Russell leading off the home fifth, and he pops one up. Lucas Duda with an easy play into foul ground. And Syndergaard has his first out in the bottom of the fifth. So this guy threw a no-hitter.
Yes.
Then became a Met, and then left the Mets and threw another no-hitter for somebody else.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. I'm just thinking of all those guys who left the Mets and pitched no-hitters, whether it's Seaver or Mike Scott.
Did they do it before?
Dwight Gooden or David Cohn. But none of those guys threw one before. So who's the guy who threw one before and after?
I was thinking
Saberhagen threw before, but not after.
Not after. My first thought was...
Oh, I got it.
Okay.
I got it. Yep. Hideo Nomo.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
That's right.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah. Threw one for the Dodgers against the Rockies, and then I think he threw one for the Brewers, or was it for the Red Sox?
I thought it was for the Brewers, but...
Right?
Yes. Yeah, very good, Garrett. No stumping you today. Here's the answer. Let's see if you got it right. Yes,
it's a great question.
Fantastic.
Great question. Congratulations on the question. If only you pitched that well as a Met. Fowler lifts one to shallow left. The wind knocking this one down. And in comes Kadire to get it 2 out. So Syndergaard in the groove right now. He's retired 6 in a row after that unearned difficulty in the third inning. Remember, in the third, he had 2 out and nobody on. Routine ground ball to third. Murphy took too much time against Bryant, and Bryant beat it out for an infield hit. That forced Syndergaard to face 3 more batters. He walked a pair and then got a bases loaded jam. And since then, he's not allowed another base run. Bryant 1 for 2 tonight. Checks his swing on the curveball, ball 1.
You know, I was really happy when I saw this on the schedule to come play the Cubs for 4 games, because you really wanted to see these young players over 4 games. They're good points, bad points. Not anything bad from Bryant so far. Hustle and homers.
Nomo's second no-hitter was with Boston against the Orioles. The first one was memorable because he pitched in Colorado, where obviously it's very hard to pitch well. This one's driven toward the right field corner off the bat of Bryant, slicing off the wall. Granderson running after it. Bryant's going to try for 3. Relay throw to third by Tejada, not in time. Chris Bryant has his first major league triple.
Hustle and hits for this youngster. Ball right on the outside corner shows you the kind of power he has. Hits it off the wall. It kind of stopped out there on Granderson, so by the time he got to it, the hustle by Bryant got him a triple.
He hit that ball so hard it almost stayed up long enough to go out of the ballpark, which would have been stunning.
Good base running there. See how he made that read, and when he saw it didn't come off the fence hard, he opted to go for 3.
Well, for a guy who has made his reputation as a power hitter, he clearly does so many other things well. Now, with a runner at third and 2 out, Syndergaard's got to get through Rizzo. And it's up and away for ball 1. Rizzo walked on 4 pitches his last time up after grounding out to short. 0 for 1. Powered that 98-mile-an-hour fastball right by him.
Good pitching from Syndergaard. Good fastball hitter. That's about the same place that he hit the home run off the Grom in last night's game.
This one had a little more giddy up.
Yeah.
Bryant getting a good lead at third with Murphy off the line.
think Bryant's getting a bigger lead because remember he was on third when he didn't come home on that ball that got away from Plawecki just a little bit. So he wants to give himself a better shot if it happens again.
Two and one to Rizzo. This is with the changeup, 3-1. I don't think he'd be heartbroken if he walked Rizzo here, but you got a tough hitter in Montero on deck as well.
You're stuck in a scoreless game here, so you have to make sure that you make a quality pitch, or you're right, a walk is not the worst thing.
He threw him a 3-1 changeup and missed with it. Second time he's walked Rizzo, and now he'll face Montero with runners at first and third. That's the fourth walk given up by Syndergaard. By the way, just to button up that story on Nomo, I was going to say the thing that was incredible about Nomo's no-hitter in Colorado, he pitched the entire game out of the stretch.
Right.
And he was known for his tornado windup, but it had rained that night, and I think they had a 2-hour rain delay, and the mound was a little wet, so he didn't want a chance to wind up.
Wow.
And pitched the whole game from the stretch and pitched a no-hitter.
Deo known for that split finger.
So first and third and 2 out, scoreless game, fifth inning. Here's Montero, who's grounded out and walked 0 for 1. Syndergaard keeps it away from him. Well, remember how that third inning progressed. After Bryant got aboard with 2 out, Syndergaard walked Rizzo. He then walked Montero before getting out of the bases loaded jam by retiring Soler. So here, Bryant with a 2-out triple, a walk to Rizzo. See what happens with Montero. And he's behind him 2-0. So it's costing him a lot of extra pitches, but it's almost as though Syndergaard is maneuvering his way through these left-hand hitters.
He is, but at some point you got to challenge someone. And Montero's a veteran hitter. He might sit on a changeup here, which sounds crazy.
We saw a 2-0 changeup the last time. And he gets a curveball that time. It's 2-1. Syndergaard's already throwing. He'll throw any pitch in any count.
I tell you, he's changed radically since even this spring training.
Plawecki's setting up inside. Montero fouls off the fastball. That might have been as big a mistake as he's made all night.
Well, what was good about that, he kept it down. If you make a mistake, make it down.
Two and two to Miguel Montero. Struck him out. Syndergaard pounds his fist in his glove. His fifth strikeout of the night, and the Cubs strand 2. Syndergaard overpowering. No score after 5. Todd Frazier has his 11th home run in that game for the Reds. It's a lot of home runs.
It is.
For the kid from New Jersey. Here's Kevin Plawecki leading off in the 6th inning of a scoreless game against Jake Arrieta, who gets ahead of him with a cutter. Plawecki grounded out to third base his first time up. Syndergaard on deck, and then Tejada. What do you figure? 84 pitches for Syndergaard. He gets one more inning.
One more, I think. He'd really have that pitch count low, but he had to throw some extra pitches after the Bryant hustle play.
84 pitches. He threw 95 his last start for Vegas. He's thrown as many as 100 this year. And Arrieta picks off the outside corner. It's 1-2 to Plawecki. Kevin making his 16th start. Travis d'Arnaud is on the mend. He can do everything but swing a bat now as he heads down to Florida for his rehab. It'll probably be the 1st of June before Travis is ready. Ball misses inside 2-2. So in the meantime, the Mets keeping a 3-man catching platoon. Mentioned that Terry had thought about catching Manel tonight. He definitely wants to start Manel sometime soon. It probably won't be in this series. Curveball, strike 3 called, and Plawecki knew it. 6 strikeouts for Arrieta, 1 down in the 6th.
6 strikeouts, 5 of them have come on this pitch. This nasty breaking pitch that stands Plawecki up.
So 1 out now. Syndergaard, who struck out in his first big league at bat. There's been much to like from Noah Syndergaard tonight. It seems like it's gone that way recently with Met pitchers making their debuts, right? We showed you earlier the numbers from Harvey and Wheeler and DeGrom in their debuts, but remember the Colin McHugh debut against the Rockies?
Did he strike out 9 or so?
7 scoreless innings. Of course, McHugh was dealt away and has now found a home for himself in Houston, where he's won 11 straight decisions. But the funny thing about it is, if you think about it, McHugh probably wouldn't have had a place in this rotation if they kept him around.
Yeah, he would not have a place. He'd be in AAA.
That's dealt Colin McHugh to get Eric Young from Colorado. 1-2 to Syndergaard. And the curveball outside, 2-2. But good for Colin. It's great to see him enjoying that kind of success with the Astros. And Syndergaard down on strikes for the 2nd time. That's 7 for Arrieta, including his last 3 hitters. And that matches his season high.
I was thinking about, you were mentioning Colin McHugh. It happened in the 80s when there were a lot of talented young pitchers for the Mets. There were a lot of guys in AAA that were Jeff Bittiger and some others that were very good pitchers, never got their shot.
Well, it's going to get crowded here in a hurry with Syndergaard here and Steven Matz, who threw 7 scoreless innings yesterday or the day before yesterday, not far behind. Dylan G won't be on the disabled list for long, and the Mets all of a sudden are going to have a glut. They have to figure out what to do with that glut, which is a happy problem to have. Much better than having a dearth.
Yeah, that's right.
Glut over dearth anytime. Tejada lined out to center his first time up. Granderson would be next. 1-1 to Rubin. Curveball hit hard, but right at Bryant. Takes his time. Side retire. 7 in a row retired by Arrieta. Still no score in Chicago. Inning against Noah Syndergaard. It was a big batter for Syndergaard in the third.
Well, one of his biggest moments where the bases loaded. 2 great breaking balls to start the at-bat. But then Soler, I think, did a nice job to fight his way back. Took a couple of pitches down and worked the count to full. And Syndergaard came right after him with a good fastball. Just beat him. It was down the middle, but it had enough on it to get out of that inning.
Made Mom happy. Right at an equally big out, struck out Montero with 2 on to end the 5th. Now he's got Soler leading off in the bottom of the 6th. Game still scoreless. First pitch curveball is down for ball 1. Soler, Castro, and Coghlan 5, 6, and 7 in the Chicago batting order. Syndergaard in 85 pitches. And he falls behind Soler 2-0. Noah's last start was Thursday, so he's on his regular day. He went 8 innings against Albuquerque through 95 pitches. Struck out 8 in that game. Line into center, and Soler's got a leadoff hit. Second hit of the night for Soler. The third, make it the 4th for the Cubs.
That's amazing at this level. It doesn't matter how hard you throw. If you get behind in the count, the hitters turn it up a notch. And Soler right on that fastball away. Right back to the box.
Well, it's the first time all night the Cubs have gotten the leadoff man on against Syndergaard. Nobody throwing yet in the Mets bullpen. They're merely doing some loosening up exercises as Starlin Castro steps in. Castro is struck out and flied out 0 for 2. And he takes just off the inside corner. Chris Coghlan, the number 7 hitter on deck, the pitcher's spot behind him. Takes a strike. Starlin Castro at age 25, 881 career hits. There's your JetBlue 6th inning recap. It's been all about the pitchers tonight. Syndergaard in his debut and Arrieta both have been wonderful on a cold night in Chicago. 1-1 to Castro. Fouled away.
Castro's the definition of a free swinger. One of those guys that can hit the pitch out of the zone sometimes. Good bad ball hitter.
0 for 6 in this series so far. Soler at first, not a fast man, and Syndergaard wants a conversation with Plawecki before they throw the next one to Castro.
In fact, today's the birthday of maybe the best bad ball hitter of all time.
That's true. Yogi Berra, 90 candles today, and all the best, Yogi. What a magnificent player he was. And you know, people forget sometimes just what a great player he was. Forget about all the quotations and all the the cuteness of Yogi Berra. He was a magnificent baseball player.
Magnificent baseball player, and I don't know. I feel like he's a gem of Americana. You know.
Went to the All-Star game 15 consecutive years. 2-2 to Castro, ripped down the left field line. That'll go all the way to the corner. Soler racing for third. Kadire trying to get to it. Soler being waved home, and he'll score the first run of the night. An RBI double for Starlin Castro. 1-0 Chicago.
Well, he tried to come in a couple of times, and this is really the first curveball that he hung over the middle of the plate, and Castro didn't miss it. Interesting, Wrigley Field, it's deeper in the corners than it is in the alleys. So once that ball goes down the line, it travels a great distance, which allows Soler to score.
353 feet to that corner. Just the second double of the year for Starlin Castro, his 20th run batted in. And so Syndergaard is finally dented. 2 hard hit balls to start the inning. Soler with a hard single to center. And then the double by Castro drives him in. Alex Torres is going to get up in the Mets bullpen.
Takes your pitchers on a night like this in relief a little longer to get ready.
So now Coghlan, the number 7 hitter, he's drawn an intentional walk, and then he was robbed of a hit on a beautiful diving catch by Kadire his last time up. It is almost impossible, history tells us, for a visiting pitcher to win his debut at Wrigley Field. There have been 41 of them who have made their debut here, and only 4 have gotten a win. Wow. Most recently, Brett Myers in 2002. Jason Isringhausen made his big league debut here for the Mets in '95 and pitched wonderfully, but got a no decision. 0-2 to Coghlan. Of course, the most star-crossed first ever start at Wrigley Field belonged to the Mets' Tim Leary in 1981. A very cold day. He lasted just 2 innings, hurt his arm, and didn't pitch in the big leagues for another 2.5 years.
Yeah, my good friend and roomie, Tim Leary. When he used to throw on the side, his stuff was so good, other pitchers would watch him throw.
Syndergaard ahead 0-2 on Coghlan. Couldn't get him to chase. 1-2.
I think Timmy's best year was with the Dodgers in '88. I think he won 17 or 18 games.
Count is 2-1 on Coghlan. And he crashes one to deep right field. Back goes Granderson near the wall, and it's out of here. Chris Coghlan with a 2-run homer, his 4th of the year. And the Cubs have put up a 3 spot against Syndergaard here in the 6th inning. 3-0 Chicago.
Well, I said it last night. Is it me or is Chris Coghlan always seemed to get big hits against the Mets? Not a home run hitter, not known as one anyway, but got all of this.
Well, he had been struggling coming into the series. Had 2 hits last night, and now his 4th home run of the year. So a single, double, and home run off Syndergaard to start the 6th inning, and it's 3-0 Cubs. Now the pitcher Arrieta takes a strike. Arrieta's been up twice, struck out both times. So Noah Syndergaard, who pitched 5 very healthy innings, finds a wall here in the 6th. About to throw his 100th pitch of the night, which will match the most he's thrown this year. Alex Torres ready to go in the bullpen, and he may be called upon momentarily. Syndergaard just trying to get the first out here in the 6th inning, ahead on Arrieta 1-2. Still throwing hard, 98 miles an hour.
Ricky Bonas, the bullpen coach, just signaled to the bench that Alex Torres is ready.
Due to retreating over near the tarp, and that'll go back in the crowd. That wind really blowing the ball over that way from left toward right.
Yeah, that ball started, just in foul territory and then ended up 6 or 7 rows back. You called it, Gary. The wind's changing a little bit.
Well, a little more in from left field toward the first baseline now than it was earlier in the game. Arrieta watches wide, and now it's a full count. Syndergaard has walked 4, one of those intentional. He struck out 5, given up 2 runs and 6 hits, and this almost undoubtedly will be his last batter. At 102 pitches for the night. And Arrieta down swinging for the first out of the inning, and here comes Terry Collins, and that'll be all for Syndergaard. 6 strikeouts in his big league debut, but he cracked a little bit here in the 6th inning, and he will leave trailing in this game 3-0. So Noah with every right to be proud of his big league debut. Mets couldn't get him any runs, and the Cubs finally broke through here in the 6th. Call to the bullpen brought to you by Verizon. 3-0 Chicago in the 6th. We'll be right back. Well, he's got the first one under his belt through 5 scoreless innings. Gave up 3 runs in the 6th, and Noah Syndergaard's big league debut has come to a close.
I think both you and I were impressed, even through that 6th inning. Just in one of those duels with Arrieta.
Addison Russell greets Alex Torres and fouls back the first pitch fastball. It's been a struggle for Alex throwing strikes lately.
Well, his best pitch is his changeup, almost like a screwball. And when he's throwing it for strikes, he's awfully tough. 7 walks in 10 2/3 innings.
First batter's been a big concern. Gave up a 4-pitch walk to his first batter in his last outing Sunday at Philadelphia. Russell was 0 for 2, grounded out and fouled out. Dexter Fowler on deck, 1 out and nobody on. Cubs with 3 runs home in this 6th inning. Soler with a singles. Castro doubled in the first run, and then Coghlan with a 2-run homer. And Russell flies one down the right side. That'll go foul and out of play. Addison Russell, just 21 years old, 2nd youngest position player in the major leagues, behind
Dilson Herrera.
Acquired last summer in the deal that sent Jeff Samardzija and Jason Hamill to Oakland. First round pick by the A's just 3 years ago out of high school. Here he is in the big league. Torres almost hits him in the knee. 2-2.
I mean, most of baseball was shocked when Russell was traded. Just didn't think, he thought he was an untouchable.
You never know with Billy Beane.
Right?
He traded for Samardzija and Hamill, and now he has neither of them. Good changeup by Torres to strike out Russell. So this time he gets his first batter out, and that's the 2nd out of the inning.
Well, he's got great arm action on this changeup. It's like a fade away.
Buddy Holly.
Christy Mathewson, didn't he call his changeup a fade away?
I guess Buddy was not fade away.
That's right.
2 out and nobody on. Now Dexter Fowler, who's 0 for 3, struck out and flied out twice against Syndergaard. Well, the Cubs came limping into this series, having lost 7 of 9 and struggling particularly with their pitching. But they've gotten just enough pitching so far in this series. Last night, John Lester wasn't great and beat himself up after the game, but good enough to get a win. And tonight, Arrieta has held the Mets in check through 6.
Yeah, he was fighting himself last night with John Lester and fighting with the umpire, Andy Fletcher.
He said after the game that he was, well, he said, terrible, and that he just needs to be better. When you can be terrible and get a win, it's a good day. Fowler flies one foul, and it's 1-2. Well, those are 4 teams that have struggled through a number of years. The Mets, the Cubs, the Twins, and the Astros. And combined, they have taken major steps forward this year.
Twins may be the best team in May so far.
With the ageless Torrey Hunter on a great streak. And the resurgent Mike Pelfrey, a big part of their rotation. Who had Big Pelf as the comeback player of the year.
And the Twins have a lot of young talent coming up to the big leagues, like the Cubs. A lot of young everyday players.
True. The Astros, too.
Yeah.
They just promoted their terrific young shortstop, Carlos Correa, to AAA. Full count to Fowler.
That's Murph's ready position. He's doing kind of the karaoke there to get to the third base line.
I don't think you ever want to cross your feet
no.
like that, do you? 3-2 to Fowler. Bryant would be next. And Torres misses badly for ball 4. Some of the walks, which were a big concern for Torres in the past and something that he had avoided early in his tenure with the Mets, really jumping up now. Now he's going to face Bryant with a man on.
But it's something that's always been a problem for Alex his entire career.
So 2 out and a runner at first. Now Bryant, who has 2 hits tonight, an infield single when Murphy took his time on a throw, and then he slammed a triple off the wall and right, his first big league triple. Fowler a threat to go. He's got 8 steals this year, after stealing only 11 all of last year with Houston.
Milwaukee threw him out in last night's game.
Bryant takes the changeup up and away for ball 1. The time Bryant was retired tonight, it was on a line drive to center field. So last night he had a home run, and then the Mets pitched very carefully to him the rest of the night. He walked a couple of times. It's easy to forget that Bryant is only 23. He was a college kid who came very quickly to the big leagues after being the 2nd overall pick in the draft, and looks like a very mature player at a very young age.
Think about it. Last night hit a ball 94, 95 from DeGrom inside into the bleachers, and tonight one on the outside corner from Syndergaard at 96, 97. Hit it off the right field wall.
Now Torres behind him 2-0. Bryant takes a rip at a changeup, and it's 2-1.
Figures he's going to get a fastball. He doesn't from Torres. 2-0.
Get another one. It's 2-2.
Gee, the crowd all sighing as he swings and misses.
Bryant wearing the number 17, a very special number in Cubs history because that's the number Mark Grace wore. But for Bryant, he wears it because it's the number his dad wore in the minor leagues in the Red Sox organization.
His dad never made it to the show, right?
No, just a couple of years in the low minors. But his son certainly has. 2-2. A full count to Bryant with Rizzo waiting on deck.
You read a lot of interesting things when you read about Bryant. You read that he doesn't like to lift a lot of weights. He likes to work on his baseball instinct kind of things. That's refreshing to hear.
Well, he's not heavily muscled. He's long and lean. Has tremendous natural power. Fowler will be on the move. 3-2, 2 out. Payoff from Torres. It's fouled off. Number 1 pick in the draft in 2013 was Mark Appel, taken by Houston, and he has had nothing but problems.
A Stanford pitcher.
Bryant, the number 2 pick in the draft out of the University of San Diego, and right now that's looking like the better choice. Interesting that Duda's not playing behind the runner here, as you generally will in these situations.
I think that's just someone falling asleep at the wheel. He should be behind Fowler.
Three-two from Torres to Bryant. And it's too high, ball 4. Another 3-2 changeup that misses. Back-to-back walks issued by Alex Torres. And this is becoming a troubling pattern. Now he's got to face Anthony Rizzo with 2 men on. Normally you'd say, well, you know, he's working around the right-hand hitter to get to the left-hand batter, but it's really not Torres' game.
His strength is the right-handed hitters.
So Sean Gilmartin will get to work in the Mets bullpen. This game could get away from the Mets if it hasn't already. Down 3-0 in the 6th. 2 men aboard for Rizzo, who's the 8th man up in the inning. Fowler at second, Bryant at first. Rizzo tonight has grounded out and walked twice, all of that against Noah Syndergaard, who started this 6th inning, and Torres having a rough time trying to finish it. 2 on and 2 out. And Rizzo takes low and in. Ball 1. And the Mets have had so many hits to their bullpen. Josh Edgin, Bobby Parnell, Vic Black, Jerry Blevins, Henry Mejia. Buddy Carlisle was the latest who might have to go on the disabled list. Hurt his back last night. Mets will know in the next day or two whether he needs to be DL'd. And well, they've had so many guys fill in and do a nice job, but at some point you start to wonder whether this bullpen can avoid a breakdown without some of those injured players returning. Fortunately, Parnell started his rehab last night. Vic Black's going to start his on Sunday, but they're not here yet. Two and 1 to Rizzo.
Torres is looking in on home plate umpire Jerry Meals, but you can't really question calls when they're close because you're not throwing enough strikes.
Rizzo hits left-hand pitching extremely well. Batting here with 2 out and 2 on. And now it's 3 and 1. Mets as a staff have issued the fewest walks of any pitching staff in the National League. So this is an aberration for Terry Collins, having to watch Alex Torres struggle to throw strikes. Sometimes you just have to hide your head. Big spot here for Rizzo, be ahead of the count 3-1. And he walks. So 3 consecutive walks by Alex Torres, and ball 4 wasn't even close. And well, it's not Terry Collins going out to the mound, it's Dan Warthen, so apparently Torres is going to get one more batter.
You almost feel like it's got to be a little psychological for Torres now to be at this level and not be able to throw a ball close to a strike on a 3-1 count. Unacceptable.
Well, Miguel Montero is going to come to the plate with the bases loaded and 2 out, with a chance to do some heavy damage. Net pitchers have now walked 7 tonight. They walked 6 last night, but again, that's been an aberration this year. But it's funny, you said coming into the series, Ronnie, this umpiring crew tends to call fewer strikes than most, and it really has worked out that way, whether it's been incorrect in terms of their calls or not. It's been the way the series has gone. So a moment of truth for Alex Torres after 3 straight 2-out walks. He faces Miguel Montero, the 9th man up in the inning. Montero has grounded out, walked, and struck out 0 for 2. Knee-high fastball for a strike. Fowler at third, Bryant at second, Rizzo at first with 2 out. A half inning that's gone almost a half hour. It's a bad ratio. Ball and a strike to Montero. Jorge Soler began this inning with a base hit against Syndergaard. Is now out on deck. One to Montero. And he foul tips that one. 1-2.
Just missed that changeup, did Montero, like he was sitting on it. Had a big swing for a little guy.
Now Torres with a chance to get through the inning. Ahead 1-2 on Montero. Grounded to the right side. Flagged by Duda, but he has no play. Fowler scores. The bases remain loaded. 4-0 Chicago.
Well, this is just a little inexperienced by Lucas, because see how he turns? He's trying to make that play at first. He shouldn't want to make that play at first. Make the play at second base. That's where your momentum's going. Just get it and throw it to the shortstop. That makes it a much easier play. There's no way you're going to get to this ball, fire it, and probably throw it correctly to Torres covering first base. Easier play at second.
So 4 runs are home in the inning, and now Jorge Soler will bat for the 2nd time in the 6th inning. Bases loaded, 2 out. Soler 2 for 3 tonight, led off this inning with a single to center. Well, the 2nd infield hit that the Mets have given up tonight that could have been avoided with a little better play. Question is, was Flores there to take the throw from Duda had he decided to go that way?
Well, watch Alex Torres first. He gets over there with hustle. He would have been there, but it's a harder play. You want to make the play that's easier. So Torres would have been there, but Flores was there.
One and one to Soler. Torres misses 2-1. By the way, I thought as that ball rolled away from Duda that Bryant was going to make a break for the plate and try and score a 2nd run on that play, but he thought better of it. We've already seen his base running instincts. Bryant at third, Rizzo at second, Montero at first. This will be the 50th pitch of the inning. Thrown by a Met. Soler takes inside, 3-1. So now Torres has already walked 3 in a third of an inning, in danger of forcing a run. Sean Gilmartin continues to warm up. This is turning into a nightmare inning for Torres and the Mets. Three and 1 to Jorge Soler, and he rips one foul. And he broke his bat in so doing.
Broke his bat on that 3-1 changeup.
Bryant, Rizzo, and Montero, the base runners. They'll all be moving with 3 and 2 and 2 out. I'd like to be an outfielder standing out there in the freezing cold this entire inning. Just trying to stay warm. He's a Chicago native, Curtis. 3-2. Soler bounces that one foul.
You know, I think that's one of the things I didn't discuss is that, you know, Duda did not come up with that play. It was a hard play, not an easy play. But when you're standing out there that long, those kind of plays are not made.
Well, they'll try and stay on their toes on 3 and 2. Soler swings and misses, and Alex Torres finally puts the inning to bed. His second strikeout, but the Cubs send 10 men to the plate and they score 4. 3 off Syndergaard and 1 against Alex Torres. 4-0 Cubs after 6. They're leaving a light on at Wrigley Field, where we're going to the 7th inning. Cubs lead the Mets 4-0. People's United Bank starting pitchers. Jake Arrieta has been fantastic. He's gone through the minimum over the first 6 innings. Noah Syndergaard, 5 terrific innings, then broke down in the 6th.
It's even a story here.
Well, did you see the story today that in the wake of Deflategate, Major League Baseball has put in more stringent security measures for the control of their baseballs?
Really?
Yep. They've got You know, the umpires rub up the balls before the game, and apparently the chain of command now includes ex-cops.
Oh, like security
accompanying the baseballs from one part of the ballpark to the other, to make sure that nothing untoward happens to them. Curtis Granderson's been up twice tonight and walked twice, which is great, but he made a huge base running blunder in the 4th inning when he tried to go first and third on a base hit to left field by Daniel Murphy and was thrown out easily by Chris Coghlan. That hit by Murphy is the only hit for the Mets tonight against Arrieta, who promptly falls behind Granderson 3-1. And remember that the Cubs batted for a half hour in the last half inning, and you wonder what effect that might have on Arrieta. It took a turn to bat in that inning. 3-2 to Granderson.
Well, Bill Webb, our director, got a shot of the Cubs bench. Arrieta was sitting over there without a jacket on. Never seen that by a pitcher in this kind of weather.
With no sleeves either.
Joe's got the ear flap hat.
And Granderson retired for the first time. 8 strikeouts for Arrieta, a new season high. 1 out in the 7th.
Well, this is a pitch you usually see Granderson take down, but his breaking ball's been good all night.
So 1 out and nobody on. Now Murphy, who singled between Bryant and the third baseline in the 4th inning. Interesting the way they play Murph. A little bit to pull, but it's almost as though Bryant's trying to take away that shortstop hole.
Well, it cost them in Murph's first hit. First hit, the only Mets hit. See, way off that line is Chris Bryant, the third baseman.
Murphy's grounded into a double play and had that base hit. 1 for 2 on the night. And he lines one right on one hop to Bryant. Had it played perfectly that time for the second out. Scouting report.
Way off that line. Cost him before, not this time. Good pick, too, to the side.
So 9 in a row retired by Arrieta. 2 out and nobody on. Now Michael Kadire, who struck out and grounded into a double play. One of 2 double plays turned behind Arrieta, which has helped him face the minimum so far. And a ground ball for Russell to handle. 7 scoreless innings for Jake Arrieta. That'll take us to the 7th inning stretch in Chicago with the Mets down 4-0.
If they don't win it, a shame, for it's one out at the whole ball game.
Very dapper-looking Eddie Vedder, helping sing the 7th inning stretch, taking out to the ballgame.
Who's a better man than Eddie Vedder? You know what's funny? The last time I was in Chicago, I think Eddie Vedder sang the song in the 7th inning also.
So he's singing it for you,
No, not at all. Please, I wish I knew him. Love his music. Love their music.
Sean Gilmartin will pitch for the Mets in the bottom of the 7th, facing Starlin Castro to lead off. Castro had an RBI double to bring in the game's first run in the 6th. Drilled one down the left field line to chase home Soler from first base against Noah Syndergaard, who had shut the Cubs out to that point. Ball and a strike to Castro. Syndergaard went 5 1/3 in his debut, allowed 3 runs, 6 hits, 4 walks, 6 strikeouts, and a home run. Alex Torres, 2/3 of an inning, a run, a hit, 3 walks, 2 strikeouts. It was an eventful 2/3 of an inning. Between Syndergaard and Torres, the Mets threw 53 pitches to 10 batters in that 6th inning, and the Cubs scored all 4 of their runs. Meanwhile, the Mets offense has been helpless against Jake Arrieta. Castro drills one to left center. Syndergaard, Neuenhuis over in the gap, can't get to it, and Castro pulls into second base with his 2nd double of the night.
Well, like you said an inning ago, Gary, only had 1 double on the season. Now it's hit 2 in a row.
If you're just joining us, Kirk Neuenhuis playing center field because Juan Lagares has a strained muscle under his right arm that he suffered a week ago making that diving catch at Citi Field, and it's been bothering him more and more, and the Mets will hold their breath and hope it's nothing serious and it's just a day or 2. Now Matt Caesar is going to bat for Chris Coghlan. Caesar, who came off the bench last night and grounded out in his only at bat. Pride of Cape May, New Jersey, and Villanova University. Batting for Coghlan, grounds one to the left side. Flores runs around it and throws out Caesar, 1 away. During tonight's game, you can get interactive with SNY Game Day on SNY.TV, featuring pitch-by-pitch coverage, player cards, and in-depth stats. Check out SNY Game Day on SNY.TV, your online home of all things New York sports. Well, Jake Arrieta is going to stay around. He's thrown 7 scoreless innings. He'll get his 4th turn at bat. He's gone 0 for 3 with 3 strikeouts today. I think it's pretty much axiomatic now in baseball. If you're a pitcher and you get 4 at bats, you're having a great day.
Great day. Even if you've struck out every time you've been up.
No matter.
That's right.
You don't have to be Steve Avery. Well, your city probables for the remainder of the series. Matt Harvey goes for the Mets tomorrow night against Jason Hamill. Then the lefties on Thursday afternoon, John Neese and Travis Wood, before the Mets get home to play Milwaukee on Friday night. One to Arrieta with Addison Russell on deck. Cubs now with 8 hits on the night. The Mets have had but 1. By the way, just for reference, the Mets have never been 1 hit in this ballpark.
Never.
Nor have they been no hits in this ballpark. But you probably knew that. But that's what Arrieta's working on tonight as he takes the turn at bat here in the 7th. 2-2 from Gilmartin. Struck him out. So the golden sombrero for Jake Arrieta. He'll be proud of that if he can keep working on his 1-hitter. 2 out.
It's a fastball away. Overmatched by Syndergaard, but just good spot there by Gilmartin.
So 2 out. Castro still at second, and now Addison Russell has gone 0 for 3. Gilmartin faced just one batter in last night's game, got Rizzo to fly out, being asked to work a full inning tonight. We were talking earlier about the Mets bullpen and how many people they've lost, and they've had to rely more on the Gilmartins and the Eric Goodell's and the Hansel Robleses, and they've all acquitted themselves rather well.
Well, remember, Gilmartin was the guy that was a starter his entire career. Because he's Rule 5, they had to fit him in the bullpen.
What Terry Collins said he liked best about these untested relievers is that even when they've sat for long stretches, they've been able to come in and throw strikes.
Especially Goodell and Robles. Some of these guys, young guys in the bullpen, they were closers when they were in the minor leagues. So.
Gilmartin spotting that fastball nicely, and he gets ahead 1-2. Hit him 2-2. Well, remember A.J. Burnett had an awful year in Philadelphia last year?
Yes.
Well, he returned to Philly tonight with the Pirates and pitched to Jet. He's been great.
Yeah, he has been.
As he was his previous stint in Pittsburgh. Pirates beat the Phillies 7-2. Burnett's ERA 1.60.
Obviously, he must have that breaking ball back.
Maybe he's not going to retire after all. 2-2 to Russell. Bounce foul. Also tonight, the Reds got a run in the bottom of the ninth to beat the Braves 4-3. Devin Mesoraco got the hit as a pinch hitter.
Wow.
Now he's going to need surgery.
Hip surgery, right?
Right. He can't catch, but they're keeping him on the roster just to pinch hit, and he got them a game-winning hit.
They've had some games also against American League teams too, so he could DH.
Right. Russell hits it toward the line. Long run for Granderson. It's slicing away, and he can't get to it. In to score comes Castro. Pulling into second with an RBI double is Addison Russell. And the Cubs now lead 5-0.
Boy, this young talent has had an imprint in these first two games. Tough pitch to hit. Tougher one for Granderson to get to. There's nothing Granderson could do there. That ball just kept working its way away from him.
So Castro and Russell both doubling off Gilmartin here in the seventh to produce a run. Now 5-0 Chicago. Here's Dexter Fowler up for the fifth time, 0 for 3 and a walk tonight. And he dribbles one back to Gilmartin. That retires the side, but the Cubs tack on a run in the bottom of the seventh. That's come to bat in the eighth. Now trailing the Cubs 5-0. Tuesday Night Baseball on SNY is brought to you by Verizon. Don't miss a moment of Mets baseball on the largest, most reliable 4G LTE network, only from Verizon. Mets have been shut out over the first 7 innings. Matt Caesar stays in the game in left field for the Cubs. Lucas Duda leads off in the 8th against Jake Arrieta, who has faced just 21 batters in 7 innings. You can't do any better. He's given up 1 single and 2 walks, striking out 8. Duda struck out twice tonight, and quickly behind the count 0-2.
Even that single turned into an out as Granderson was thrown out at third base.
Wonder how this game might have been different had that not happened. Hansel Robles getting up in the Mets bullpen. For 5 innings, Noah Syndergaard matched strides with Arrieta before the Cubs got to him in the 6th. Duda lines one the other way, and he's got the Mets' 2nd hit of the night. So a leadoff single for Duda, and that'll get the Cubs bullpen active as Arrieta gave up a hit on his 100th pitch of the night. The former Cardinal and former Iona catcher Jason Mott is up in the bullpen. Here's Flores, who's 0 for 2, popped up and flied out. Arrieta threw 106 pitches in 5 1/3 in his last start. He's pitching into the 8th inning tonight at 100 pitches. And he comes inside to Flores, ball 1. Kirk Neuenhuis waits on deck. Offense has been hard for the Mets to come by. They had a breakout game on Sunday with 7 runs and 14 hits in Philadelphia. Or fewer, 10 of the last 13 games. Fortunate to be 6-7 over that span with some great pitching. The slider from Arrieta, 1-1.
You're right. That's where you score as little as that. You go 3-10 sometimes in that stretch.
Flores lines one the other way. He's got himself a base hit. Duda will go first to third as Soler gets it in. And so the Mets have something cooking here in the 8th inning. 1st and 3rd and nobody out. First time the Mets have gotten a runner as far as third base tonight. So Mott throwing a little harder in that Cubs bullpen as Kirk Neuenhuis comes to bat. Normally, Pedro Strop is the 8th inning guy. Hector Rondon the 9th. But with a 5-run lead, perhaps Joe Maddon's going to play it a little differently, with Mott getting ready here in the 8th. So here's Neuenhuis, who's flied out and struck out 0 for 2. 1st and 3rd and nobody out. And Arrieta throws a fastball for a strike.
Arrieta started the night throwing 94 miles an hour. He's still there. Pitch 104.
He's ahead on Neuenhuis, 0-2.
Difference this inning is that his ball's been up. You see Plawecki on deck. His curveball and fastball has been up in the strike zone.
Oh-2 coming, and Neuenhuis stays alive. Jeff Russell has joined Jason Mott in the bullpen. Russell, the once and now again Cub. So I was Brave last year, but the Braves let him go, and the Cubs picked him back up. Did I hear Giancarlo Stanton hit one out of Dodger Stadium?
Out of.
Willie Stargell, Mike Piazza. I think Stargell did it twice. Neuenhuis takes a call, 3rd strike. And that's 9 strikeouts now for Jake Arrieta. Let's check in with Michelle Yu in the studio for another game break brought to you by Ford. You say it, they play it.
Very nice. Way to go, Michelle.
One out. Here's Kevin Plawecki, who's grounded out and struck out 0 for 2, and tries to lay off, but went around on the curveball. 0-1. Plawecki 1 for 5 in this series. Johnny Manel is out on deck to bat for the pitcher Gil Martin. Out to right field, tagging at third is Duda. Soler with the catch. Duda heading home. Soler makes the throw, not in time, and the Mets are on the board. Sacrifice fly for Kevin Plawecki gets the first Met run of the night. It's now 5-1.
Well, good hitting by Plawecki. Fastball up, hitting that ball to right field the whole way, and got it just deep enough to score Duda. Pretty good arm by Soler, right? One hop throw to the plate.
So now Johnny Manel will be the pinch hitter. This will be Manel's 4th at bat as a Met. He has a double, and he's hit into 2 double plays, and what all 3 of those at bats have in common, all bullets. Yeah. And Terry Collins has been extremely impressed with what he's seen from Manel. Terry said that when Manel was called up, he recognized what his role was going to be. He came to Terry and said, I'm going to be the best left-hand pinch hitter in the National League. How about that?
That's great.
And so far he has shown the ability to come off the bench and hit the ball hard.
Bronx confidence.
Well, you know, he's 29. He knows at this point in his career what his place is. He might get a chance to catch every once in a while, but he's here to hit. He hits this one in the air over toward the left field line. A long one for Caesar into foul ground. He can't make the sliding catch. Foul ball. And Manel will get another shot at it.
Well, this ball, see how he reroutes his course there because the wind knocked it down. He got there in time, but in going to the slide, he missed the play. Good hustle by Caesar.
Now, we've watched Johnny Manel a little in spring training and now through a few at-bats in the big leagues. And the guy that he reminds me of in terms of the way he swings the bat, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, is Matt Stairs.
Yeah, no, great call.
He just opens up and finds the barrel of the bat to the ball.
Yeah, he's got the great hand-eye coordination. Just wants to hit the ball hard every time. That's how Stairs was. Stiff front leg. The other thing he does that Stairs did, keeps that bat in the strike zone a long time, like drags it through.
1-2 coming. The curveball wraps around the plate. 2-2. Well, Arrieta out there for 113 pitches on a cold night. Joe Madden trying to get him through the inning. I would assume that if he doesn't get Manel, this will be his last batter. Mott appears to be ready to go. Tejada on deck. 2-2 coming to Manel. Bounces one foul.
Well, Joe Madden had some great horses he could go to when he was in Tampa Bay. A lot of great pitchers that he would push to go deeper into games. That might be what he's trying to do here, at least with his better pitchers, better starting pitchers.
Well, Arrieta making his 7th start. He's been over 100 pitches now in 6 out of 7. So they've shown no compunction about him going deeper into games. Flores at first and 2 out. And Manel pops one up. Coming back is Montero. That'll be in the crowd. 115 pitches for Arrieta tonight. It's the 2nd highest total of his career. Russell, the left-hander, Mott, the right-hander, both ready to go. Meanwhile, Hansel Robles getting ready in the Mets bullpen to pitch the bottom of the 8th. This will be the 7th pitch of the at-bat from Arrieta to Manel. Johnny takes a call, third strike. Good curveball by Arrieta to seal his night. 10 strikeouts for Jake Arrieta. He gives up a run in the 8th, but he's got a 5-1 lead as we go to the bottom of the 8th in Chicago. All fans in attendance will receive a Mets t-shirt courtesy of McDonald's. For tickets, visit Mets.com/free-shirt-Fridays. Tomorrow night, game 3 of this series. Matt Harvey will go to the mound for the Mets in the wake of his first loss of the season. He'll be opposed by Jason Hamill. Our coverage begins tomorrow night at 7 o'clock right here on SNY. Hard throwing Hansel Robles will pitch the bottom of the 8th for New York.
Yeah, and if the Mets don't come back tonight, Harvey's going to have to be the stopper tomorrow. Been really impressed with Robles so far. Forget about the ERA. Strikeouts is nice, but legitimately good fastball with a lot of movement. Good slider.
Worked an inning in the 3rd last night. Struck out a pair. He'll face Chris Bryant, his first man in the bottom of the 8th. Bryant has been on base 3 straight times, an infield single, a triple off the wall and right, and then a walk. So he's 2 for 3 tonight, 3 for 5 in the series with a triple and a home run. So you'd have to say he's made an impression. Well, we went into this series talking about the 2 major market teams that are both rebuilding on their own terms. That's with dominant young pitching, and Cubs with everyday players of great talent. And so far, the Cubs have had the upper hand.
What did Jed Hoyer say today that sparked a lot of controversy?
Well, he said there hasn't been a trade between the Mets and Cubs yet, but it will happen.
At some point in time, it's going to happen. You're right.
Well, we'll see. In the air to deep left field. Kadire takes a look, and that ball is gone. Chris Bryant strikes again. His 3rd big league home run, his 2nd in 2 nights. 6-1 Chicago. There was that sound again.
It's that sound, and a ball hit that high against the wind does not go out of this ballpark unless you're superhuman. It's the sound, and what's interesting is that all the fans here are totally into his at-bats, and the reaction was instantaneous when it hit his bat. That's the roar from a crowd that's anticipating him hitting a home run.
Rizzo drives one into right field, and he's got himself an extra base hit. So Rizzo aboard for the 4th straight time. And Robles being greeted rudely tonight. A home run and a double from the 1-2 punch of Bryant and Rizzo.
Well, you mentioned that Robles pitched an inning and a third last night, and it shows tonight. Not as electric as stuff. And he's paid twice here in this inning.
Well, between them, Bryant and Rizzo have been on base 8 out of 10 plate appearances tonight. Now Miguel Montero, who had an infield hit to drive in a run his last time up. The thing about Bryant's home run, you mentioned it was against the wind. He came within a row or two of making it onto Waveland Avenue, which, you know, when the wind's blowing in, you don't see that.
No, I'm telling you folks, you do not hit a ball that high out of this ballpark when the wind's blowing in. Cold night. Just don't do it.
That's 7 extra base hits tonight. Montero loses his bat, and it goes helicoptering 15 rows deep. That could win him an Olympic medal. Hammer throw.
That's about as far as I've ever seen a bat thrown as Montero, hoping that didn't hurt anybody.
I think everybody's okay. The only question was who was going to get possession of the bat. 1-1 from Robles. It foul.
There used to be a time when the bat went into the stands. The person who got the bat would bring it back into play, and the hitter would use it, and they'd bring him up another bat.
Right, you trade. But now I guess hitters have much bigger stockpiles of bats.
Yeah.
They can afford to lose one. Did you see that last night for the Braves, or for the Nats, Yunel Escobar had a 5-hit game, his second 5-hit game of the year. As Montero pops one up into shallow left, and the guy is there. That's the first out of the inning. Anyway, after the 5-hit game last night, Yunel Escobar said he was going to retire the bat. Now, for most hitters, they get a 5-hit night, that bat it's going to be used a lot longer. But he decided that all the hits were gone out of the bat, and he retired it.
Wow. Never heard of that.
It's always been a little different.
Yeah.
One out here, Soler, who's 2 for 4 tonight. It was Soler who got the 6th inning rally started against Syndergaard with a base hit to center field. Castro followed with a double for the game's first run, and Coghlan hit a 2-run homer. And the Cubs have added on a run in the 7th and a run here in the 8th against the Mets bullpen. And Robles struggling behind 2-0.
Although you have to be impressed by the way Syndergaard pitched tonight until he got to the 6th. Gary, you and I were talking about it. You said before the first game, the good young everyday players of the Cubs against the good young pitching of the Mets. Well, they could have 2 losses in this series.
Murphy into foul ground, tracking it with the wind, and stays with it for the 2nd out. So Soler retired, 2 out. Here's your Cadillac drive around the majors. We mentioned A.J. Burnett against his former team. 7 innings, 6 hits, 1 run, 6 strikeouts. Cardinals got Matt Carpenter back tonight and whacked the Indians 8-3. Best record in the majors at 23-9. We'll see the Cardinals on the next homestand. And the Nationals, who walloped the Diamondbacks last night, down 3-1 in the 4th. Ender Inciarte with a leadoff home run against Steven Strasburg tonight. Cardinals and Mets sitting on top of those flag standings. They've always got those flags in the order of the standings in the 3 divisions. Mets, Cardinals, Dodgers sitting on top. Castro a pair of doubles tonight. 2 for 4. Driven in a run, scored 2. Takes a big cut, fouls it back.
There's very comfortable swings by these Cubs hitters. As they get around the league, the Mets pitcher is going to have to do a little better job of making these guys a little more uncomfortable. That means pitching in more, moving their feet.
To Castro. Rizzo at second and 2 out. Flores to his right on the backhand. Throws out Castro to end the inning. Cubs add a run on the Chris Bryant home run. We go to the 9th at Wrigley Field with the Mets down 6-1.
Boom.
Your Verizon Mets box score, not a lot to look at tonight. Mets have had only 3 hits in 8 innings against Jake Arrieta. Mets finally got a run on a sacrifice fly by Kevin Plawecki in the 8th inning. Now James Russell will try and finish it off for the Cubs.
James Russell, whose father Jeff Russell was a right-handed reliever for the Cincinnati Reds, Texas Rangers, Oakland A's, my teammate in Oakland.
Russell moved from the Cubs to the Braves last summer, but the Braves let him go. Cubs picked him up on a minor league deal, and he's right back in the big leagues with Chicago, making his 5th appearance. Ruben Tejada leads off the 9th inning for New York. It was quite a night for Jake Arrieta. Threw 116 pitches in 8 innings, 1 run, 3 hits, 2 walks, 10 strikeouts. Arrieta's 5th career double-digit strikeout game, and a chance to get his first ever win against the Mets. Tejada hits one right through the originator and into center field for a leadoff hit. So the Mets trying to get something started in the 9th, and Tejada does that with his first hit of the night.
Well, this is what we've seen from Tejada of late, hitting the ball back up the middle. His strength.
So the Mets have their 4th hit of the night. And now Curtis Granderson, who's walked twice and struck out 0 for 1. Rizzo's going to play behind Tejada at first base. 3 infielders on the right side against Granderson. And Curtis pops one up. Castro makes the call and puts it away for the first down. Let's check in with the studio, see what's coming up on WB Mason Postgame Live. Gary Apple, Nelson Figueroa. All right, guys, here's Daniel Murphy, who's 1 for 3 on the night, and he takes outside ball 1. That's batting in the ninth, down 6-1. Colin McHugh's winning streak came to an end tonight. Giants beat him 8-1 in Houston. 11 in a row going back to last year.
11 in a row in 16 starts. ERA low 2s.
The Giants continue to keep their head above water. I'm not sure how they're doing it. Chris Heston got his 3rd win. It's come out of nowhere for them. I mean, it's not an even numbered year.
Yeah, right. Well, Tim Lincecum has learned to win again. He's not throwing like he used to in his Cy Young years, but much craftier.
And it looks like sometime in the next week or two they're going to get Hunter Pence back after he broke his forearm in spring training. Murphy drives one to left field. Caesar will have to play it on the hop, and Murphy has his 2nd hit of the night. So the Mets have a couple of men on in the ninth. And Michael Kadire coming to the plate.
Well, Justin Maxwell has done a pretty good job in right field for the Giants.
He'll be a nice extra outfielder to have once Pence comes back. Giants were also 9-3 in 1-run games this year. That helps. So Russell's given up a couple of hits here in the ninth. The Mets only had 1 hit in the first 7 innings. They got a couple against Arrieta in the 8th, 2 more here in the ninth. And now Kadire, who's 0 for 3 tonight. And he takes the breaking ball in the dirt for ball 1. After the postgame show tonight, it's Geico Sports Night. Rangers Caps Game 7 tomorrow night. And Carlin doesn't go for the deep dish. You know, you have to have respect for all pizza, Chris. Victor Rondon, the closer, lightly throwing, hoping he won't need to be used.
It's the deep dish place here. Gino's East is what they call it.
There's a number of good ones around town. And, you know, it's a local delicacy.
Yeah.
Nobody's, you know, just because you like deep dish Chicago style pizza, it really doesn't negate your love of New York style.
That's right.
Pizza. There's a place for love of all pizza.
Right.
2-2 to Kadire with Lucas Duda on deck. Tejada at second, Murphy at first. Two from Russell. And that's strike 3 called, and Kadire not happy about that. 2 out.
Well, Kadire doesn't argue very often. 6-1, 9th inning. Russell gets the call.
Well, he saw that as low. May or may not have been, but the Mets are down to their final out with Lucas Duda coming up. Duda 1 for 3, scored the only Met run after singling to left his last time up. So the Mets, who got swept a 3-game series here last year, in danger of losing their 5th straight game at Wrigley Field. Flores would be next. Russell trying to finish it off for Jake Arrieta, who was tremendous tonight for 8 innings. But he's behind on Duda now, 2-0. One more base runner for the Mets would create a save situation for Rondon. It's no guarantee Joe Madden would go to him in that spot with a 5-run lead, but if he did and Rondon got 1 out, he would qualify for a save. Two and out to Duda. And Lucas swinging and fouls it back.
Amazing sometimes how these relievers pitch into a jam to allow the closer to come in. Certainly Russell's not trying to do that.
John Mayberry staying ready just in case he's needed. 2-1 to Duda. And he fouls it away, and now the Mets are down to their final strike. Lucas homered off a lefty last night. And 2 of his 3 home runs this year now have come against lefties. That's as many as he hit against the left-hander all last season in his 30 home run year. 2 out, 2 on, 2-2 to Duda. Lucas goes down swinging, and that'll do it. Russell finishes his inning with back-to-back strikeouts, and the Cubs have taken the first 2 of the series. Strong pitching by Jake Arrieta, big hitting by Bryant and Rizzo, and the major league debut of Noah Syndergaard spoiled in a 6-1 Chicago win.
Well, I still think it was an impressive debut by Noah Syndergaard, and that was the new story. But the old story for the Mets continues the same, and that is having a hard time scoring any runs. And the Cubs take the first 2.
And the Mets struck out 12 times tonight. The first 10 for Jake Arrieta, who gets his 4th win of the year and his first ever against the Mets. As Joe Madden's team has taken the first 2 of this series. Mets are now 20-13 on the year. Syndergaard 5 scoreless innings, but gave up 3 runs in the 6th, and that gets him a loss in his first major league start as the Cubs beat the Mets tonight 6-1. They put up the big W in Chicago. We'll come back with more from Wrigley Field in just a moment.